The golden era for Disney consists of 5 classic animated films, so let's rank them. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the Movie Ranker, and today I'm going to be ranking all 5 golden era Disney films from worst to best. You might be asking, what is the golden era? The golden era is from 1937 to 1942. This is the first era where Disney was putting out full-length animation films. Before, they were only shorts and whatnot, and no one really believed that you could actually make a full-length animated film and make it interesting and entertaining enough that, and keep people's interests. But they proved everybody wrong by making these 5 classics. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like rankings like this. I go through all genres, from action to horror to family, everything, so you don't want to miss any future rankings. And make sure you drop your ranking for these 5 films in the comment section. I love to have a great discussion with you. And without wasting any more time, let's dive in. So kicking things off in last place at number 5, I have to go with Dumbo. Now, personally, I was never a fan of this movie. Even as a kid, it didn't really interest me all that much. The story is paper thin. I feel like it lacks adventure. And I mean, this is barely an hour long. So this would have worked much better as a short film, in my opinion, because the setup feels like it's 40 minutes long, like the first act. And then it just rushes through the middle and the end. That's the way the story structure feels to me anyway. On a positive note, I do like the whole pink elephant sequence. It doesn't add a whole lot to the plot or anything, but I do like the song, and you get some pretty cool visuals in there. We do get some great themes and messages in here, like anti-bullying, animal cruelty even. And, just don't make fun of people for being different. It's okay to be different. And in this case, it's Dumbo with his big ass ears. We do sympathize with Dumbo, that's for sure. But I feel like he lacks personality or character to really stand out aside from his looks. And he doesn't even talk, so it all comes off as kind of depressing. And plus, there's certain things like the whole Black Crow scene, which, feels pretty outdated nowadays. To me, this is just a big misfire for Disney in an era where they were on fire. They were coming out hot, Dumbo is still iconic, I guess, as a character, but as a movie, it just didn't work for me. Up next, at number 4, I gotta give it to Fantasia. Now, hear me out. This was a first-time watch for me, so I have zero nostalgia for it. Never watched it as a child. And it just wasn't for me, guys. It was very experimental. It felt almost like an art house film or something. They really do push the boundaries visually by bringing music to life, like to the screen, where, it's kind of the first time we ever get to see like a visualizer. Like when there's one point where we get this line and it moves with the music. Remember how Windows Media Player has visualizers back in the day? It really reminded me of that. And I'm sure back in 1940, this would be blowing people's minds, but nowadays it's kind of like, all right. But I can see at the time this being really ahead of its time. It's not just visualizers too. We also get different types of animation that moves really well with the music, and all the music in here is all classical songs. So, Beethoven, Mozart, stuff like that, which is really awesome. I really dig that type of music. And I completely respect what this movie was going for, It was definitely experimental and unique. And it does have a massive fan base, and I get that, but yeah, it just wasn't for me personally. The animation is top notch, but the lack of narrative kind of didn't work for me. I'm a story guy, So this was 2 hours long, which was too long in my opinion for this type of movie. But there was different sections that were interesting, but as a whole, it just didn't really keep my interest. Like I said, there wasn't really a story here. It's more about being artistic and like visual, instead of like a literal. There's also no dialogue except for in between each section. We get like the composer or this orchestra guy explaining the song and how it works, how the animation is going to work with it. That's the only dialogue we get in the movie. When we're actually watching the animation itself, we don't get no dialogue. So All this put together, it like I said, it was kind of dull. I like a story, I like a narrative myself, but I see where the fan base comes from. This is very unique. The animation was almost psychedelic at times. I could see people experimenting with that, if you know what I mean. But I have to hand it to Mickey's short, the little section with Mickey Mouse in here. That is fantastic. That was gold. 10 out of 10. If we could have a whole movie like that, I would love it. It's very anxiety inducing, you know, with him getting the broom to do his job, moving the water, and he goes overboard and floods the place. It just makes you like, oh my god, I hope you can clean it up. Like, very anxiety inducing. I have to give it to them for that. But that was really the only section that really stood out to me to being great. The whole ending with the mountain and the creature on the mountain, like the devil or whatever, that was kind of cool too. But Mickey Mouse's section definitely stuck out the most for me. I just personally feel that this movie was just a bit too ambitious for its own good, for my own personal taste anyway. Not a bad film, just not for me, but I completely respect it. Up next, at number 3, I'm going with Bambi. What a classic film. With a real interesting story. We kind of follow a fawn, a baby deer named Bambi, while he's experiencing life for the first time. He's learning about life, he's learning about death, he's learning about love, all in the animal kingdom, in the woods. And yeah, it's just really cool. You see him kind of grow up from a fawn to an adult and all the things that happen in between. I just want to say the animation really sticks out to me with this one, with the detail of the woods, the different greens and shades and textures. It's just unbelievable. It's something that I look for every time I rewatch this. I can kind of see something new because it's just so detailed. We get real likable characters. Pretty much all of them in here are likable, especially Thumper. Thumper, you know, he's like one of those friends everybody has as a kid who don't know when to keep their mouth shut. They kind of have no filter and just say whatever they're thinking, but he makes for a great character. He's not mean, not on purpose anyway. He can say things that can come off as mean, but you know, he has that childlike innocence to him. And this film just takes you through a range of different emotions, from happy to sad to laughter. You know, it really goes through all the emotions, especially sadness when Bambi's mother dies. Like, that's one of the biggest gut punches in cinema. The only thing I find, it lost its edge over the years. Like, I used to find it hit harder when I was a kid, not as much as an adult. You could say, well, that's because you're older now, but there's other films, like for instance Lion King, Mufasa's death, that still hits me just as hard as an adult. So this one doesn't hit as hard, but it was still very well done and so unexpected. It just goes to show that humans are the worst and they can really ruin everything. But yeah, this is a very simple yet effective story. And even though there's not a whole lot to it, I never really lose interest because I just have so much fun with these characters. Up next, at number 2, I got Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, it's crazy. This is the first full-length animated film by Disney from 1937, and it is so impressive to me. Like, when I first seen this as a kid, you just figure it's from the 80s because I was born in 91, right? So I would have watched this in the 90s. And you think it's not that old. You don't think it's from the friggin' 30s. But that just goes to show how friggin' great animators they had back in the day. The hand-drawn skills and that they must have had. The animation looks great. Maybe not as tight as some of these other films, but this was the first. They just kind of perfected it after this, but still a friggin' stellar job with the details of the dwarf's house and that. It just looks so good. Few times it's a little blurry or smudgy here and there, but I mean, for the most part, it's perfection. And you know, Snow White kind of set the template for all the Disney movies to come after. You know, we get a princess, we get cute animals, we get great songs, we get quirky characters. It's all there. And the very first film that they made, they already created this formula, which they still use to this day. Snow White is fine as a character. We got her evil stepmother, the queen, who's jealous of her over her beauty. Her mirror tells her that Snow White is the fairest of them all. Where I feel like, yeah, they're both beautiful, but I feel like they were really tapping into inner beauty when they're mentioning that, like, Snow White was beautiful on the outside and in the inside. She was a very caring person, very kind-hearted, compared to the Queen. So the Queen would never be able to really get her on the beauty part of things because she's really evil in the inside, right? And Snow White's fine as a character, but it's the dwarfs that really make this movie pop for me, especially as a collective. They just work so well together. I love how all their names are like different emotions, and it's actually how they act, like different characteristics. One being like, sleepy and angry and all this different stuff. Dopey being the standout. Everybody loves Dopey. He's one of the more silly but fun characters. Him trying to get multiple kisses from Snow White and everything. It's just so fun to watch all these characters together. We got some great songs in here, but of course the big standout being "Hi Ho, Hi Ho, It's Off to Work We Go." That is obviously so iconic. Might be the best song out of all of these films. It's just so good. Definitely one of the best, most classic songs ever to come out of Disney. That's a fact. It's just one that I've known my whole life. And to this day, this film is still an achievement in history. And there's just so many memorable moments, whether we're talking about the Queen and the mirror, or her conjuring up these different spells and making herself look right wicked and evil, to, like I said, all the songs and the dwarfs, to the big ending where Snow White is in this sleep of death, basically, and the dwarfs put her in a glass and gold coffin. Just really unique, really great visuals, stuff that you really will remember for the rest of your life. My only little nitpick is with the prince. I feel like within the story, he should have been written in there a bit more. He should have maybe had a side plot in there. I know this is 1937, but I just feel like in the end, he kind of shows up out of nowhere to, save the day, where we should have seen a little bit more of him leading up to that point. I wish he would have been more relevant into the story, is all I'm trying to say. But in the end, this is still a friggin' classic, one of the greats. But for me, easily coming in the first place is Pinocchio. What a friggin' great movie. It's great in every category, really. It's has an impressive story, a big grand adventure, some great themes, great songs, great characters. It has it all. I just love how likable Pinocchio is as a character. He's great. Easily manipulated, though, being new to the world and not really knowing right from wrong. But that's why we have Jiminy Cricket in here to be his guide and his conscience to keep him on the right track, And you throw in Geppetto in here and his love for Pinocchio, where we get this great father-son bond by the end. So freaking good. All these sets of characters are all fantastic. Every one of them, even Figaro the cat. Like I said, great collective of characters. And it's just such a grand adventure that goes in pretty dark places at times, where you go to Pleasure Island and these boys are being turned into donkeys, all the way to the finale where they're battling this monstrous whale, or at least trying to escape from it, where this whale eats anything in its path. It's just really thrilling, really engaging. The animation is top notch. I mean, there's some scenes in here I don't know how they did in 1940. How were they able to draw them out this precise and clear? Especially the underwater scenes where Pinocchio's underwater. Very, very impressive, and something we never really seen up until this point in time. And of course, the film has a great message at its core, just to be a decent person, to have a moral code, to learn from your mistakes, and to not lie. Of course, Pinocchio's nose growing when he lies. Everybody who, even if you haven't seen Pinocchio, when he lies, his nose grows. That's just how iconic this character has become. But yeah, I got great themes and messages in there, which every good Disney movie needs. And Pinocchio learns a lot of great lessons throughout this adventure, leading up to him willing to risk his life to save his father Geppetto. And All this grants him the opportunity to become a real boy, and it just makes for a really satisfying conclusion to the story. And we get another killer soundtrack in here. When You Wish Upon a Star is one of the biggest songs in all of Disney's history. You know, it's basically Disney's theme song, and it all started in Pinocchio in 1940. Crazy to think, but I enjoy all the songs in here. This is basically perfection for an animated film, especially back in 1940. There's nothing wrong with it. It has great character moments, great characters themselves, a great adventure, great message and themes. Everything's there, great songs, a really impressive animation. So all this put together easily puts Pinocchio in the first place in this ranking. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 5 Disney movies from the golden era, 1937 to 1942. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram. Links to those are in the description of this video. Also, make sure to drop your ranking in the comment section. Love to see it. These are 5 classic movies, so I imagine the placements will be all over the place. Everybody will be different. Everybody has their own personal taste, right? And I will eventually get around to doing more of these Disney era rankings, like the Renaissance era, my favorite, my personal favorite, because that's what I grew up with. You know, Lion King and Aladdin and all those great films. So I'll definitely jump on that someday. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.